Previously on this trip, I was in Seoul, exploring the food and drink scene, and ended the trip with going to one of the weirdest theme parks that's clearly a ripoff of Disney. After 4 amazing days there, it was time to get on a plane bound for Japan's most northern island, Hokkaido, where I stayed in its capital, Sapporo. While here, we decided to stay at a ryokan because it's a similar price to most hotels, but it came with an onsen, which is a perfect way to relax after a day of traveling. One of the most famous things in Sapporo is the brewery, with the same name, and this is where this leg of the adventure begins. To get here from Sapporo Station, I headed to Sapporo Station, and from there I walked about 5 minutes until I saw the large brick building, and that came into view. From outside, you can see a giant smokestack adorned on top of it with the signature red star. I walked around the brewery on the outside, first passing by a field growing two of the most important crops needed for beer, hops and barley, and finally I found the entrance. Inside here, it's more of a museum and it's a free self-guided tour that talks about the history of Sapporo, and they explain why they chose the location over Tokyo. The reason for this is that in Sapporo they have cooler temperatures for longer times and allowed them to have a greater access to ice, which was needed to keep the beer fresh before refrigeration. Now, unfortunately, there's no video recordings allowed inside the museum, but that doesn't mean I can't show you the beer garden, where you can get a sample of 3 of their beers, which include the Black Label, their Original, and the Kasuki. Now, if you're in Sapporo and looking for a craft brewery, don't worry, I also went to one of those as well. And this brewery is located on the surface level above the underground walkway that leads south out of Sapporo Station. The name of that brewery translates to Sun Brewing, and there you can order a flight of 3 beers at a time of their 10 beers that are currently on tap. While we were there, we ordered the Coffee Cherry IPA, the 3 Berry Saison, the Fruit Wheat Ale, an IPA, and lastly the Brown Ale. Now, if you're looking for a place with a variety of craft beer all in one spot, my recommendation is to head back to Seoul Station and descend into basement 401 of that station and go into the department store located there. And this one's name is Daimaru. There you can find all sorts of alcohol, including wine, beer, sake, and anything else that tickles your fancy. But while you're there, I also really recommend exploring the rest of this area and see what it has to offer. If you've never been inside a Japanese department store, here's a quick rundown of what you can expect. There are always going to be multiple stories, typically between 2 in the basement and 7 to 9 above it. And each floor has a different theme, like bedding or clothing, and the basement floors are always typically a supermarket. And here you can find all sorts of things like prepared foods. They range from sweets like mochi, cakes, tamagoyaki, and even donuts, to savory things like sushi, onigiri, and everything else in between. The best part is they're always made the same day and they're sold at a pretty reasonable price. But just realize that each booth has its own checkout station, and typically they take cash and credit card if you ask. Lastly, if you want to see Japanese fruit that's crazy expensive, don't forget to swing by the produce section and see things like $100 grapes or melons that will cost you an arm and a leg. My top recommendation for here is to come somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. as the prices will start to drop by say 20% or more, as they're trying to sell all the day's food before they close. And for me, I found this is the best time to pick up something for breakfast for the next morning. But that being said, I was here around lunchtime, so I got 2 snack items, and the first up was this donut, which at first looks like a jelly-filled donut, but it's actually filled with honko bean paste in the center, which is a delicious alternative to the normal fruit jelly version that you get in the US. Second up was a strawberry mochi with fresh blueberries, which is always tasty. Continuing for food, we ate at 2 different restaurants while here. On the night we arrived, we went up to the top floor of Seoul Station, which also happened to be of the department store I was just talking about. And here we ordered off the set menu, and it came with all these items here. Second evening, we used the always helpful Happy Cow app to find some amazing ramen in Sapporo. And this place that we went to was a top recommendation, and for good reason. On top of that, the reason we chose it because it's something new to me, which was a tomato-based ramen, and this might just be some of the best ramen I've ever eaten. So do yourself and your stomach a favor and go here when in Sapporo. Now, something we had not planned for when booking this trip was that for the few days we were in the city, it actually overlapped with the Lilac and Wine Festival that was in Sapporo. This festival dates back to 1959, and since then, the lilac tree has been designated the tree of Sapporo. While walking through Odori Park, all the lilac trees were in full bloom, along with a whole bunch of other flowers that were also in bloom because it's the middle of May and just the start of spring. At one end of the park is the Sapporo Clock Tower, as well as the Odori Fountain, but once it changed over from late afternoon to evening time, all the food vendors in this area came to life with all the people flooding in from the city. There's a huge variety of wines from all over Japan, so we tried a red and white from the local area. To pair our wine with some food, we got mochi potato cakes that were drizzled in soy sauce, along with some battered and fried mushrooms. And it being Hokkaido, I wanted to look around and find some cheese-based snacks, so I ended up getting this fried cheese stick that was really tasty. Speaking of dairy, the island of Hokkaido is famous for 2 things. First is melons, and second is milk products. So on the second day, we took a trip out to Otaru, which is a 50-minute train ride from Sapporo's main station on the JR line. From there, we walked only a few minutes to Yamanaka Dairy Farm at their Otaru shop to get some ice cream from the local Hokkaido milk. And man, this ice cream is super tasty with a rich, deep flavor. And it even came topped with some blackberries. There isn't a whole lot of touristy things to do in this town, but if you're interested, you can take a boat tour through the canal or simply get some great views of the Sea of Japan. A little bit outside the main part of town was a sake brewery that we got to visit, and to be honest, it can be kind of hard to find a sake brewery to visit. The name of this one was Tanaka Sake Brewery, and there was a self-guided tour overlooking the whole production plant. I visited many breweries for beer, but this is the first sake brewery I've ever been to. If you're unaware how sake is made, it's made from a mold called koji, a strain of Aspergillus. The koji is a unique microorganism as it can break down the starches present in rice and convert those into sugar, and it also has the power to convert those sugars into alcohol in a process that's called multiple parallel fermentation. To achieve the desired product, the rice is first polished to remove any of the bran, and then inoculated with the koji. The koji has a high alcohol tolerance and can produce somewhere up to 20% alcohol if it's undiluted. After fermentation, the sake is pressed, pasteurized, and filtered. After fermentation, most sake is then aged to allow for maturation, and this can take anywhere from 9 to 12 months to reach the desired flavor before bottling. After touring the production plant, we went into the gift shop and purchased a bottle of our favorite type of sake. After visiting the sake brewery, we went back to Sapporo Station and transferred Susukino Station, where we went to Milk Mura, which is located on the 6th floor of this building. This place has something super unique that I haven't really seen elsewhere, and that was the fact that you can pair liquors with ice cream. It has a set menu, but you can order up to 6 different types of liquor and then drill them over the soft serve. And don't worry, they have a huge list of liquors to choose from, so I'm sure there'll be something you would like. Also, come hungry, as you can basically get as many ice cream refills as you want, and at the end of the meal, they'll give you a little cookie and some coffee to finish it up. I totally recommend this place. Lastly, one of my favorite things about Japan is the small coffee roasters that exist. And for me, I always need coffee first thing in the morning. Looking around Odori Park, I found Oniyama. The best thing about this place is that they open at 8 a.m., which can be kind of hard to find as a lot of cafes in Japan don't open until 11 a.m. They had beans from all over the world, and the menu gave me a pretty good description of what to expect. They can make your coffee any way you ask for, so I got an iced coffee, and I tried a different coffee each morning I went here. If you're looking for something to take home with you, don't worry. They have bags of coffee to go. And if you're looking for something to eat, they do have small breakfast options. But I just got my coffees to go and pair with the breakfast that I picked up from the department store. We only spent 2 full days in Sapporo, but totally want to come back in the winter and go skiing, and then rent a car to explore more of the island. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, as next I'll be heading to the most southern island, Japan, that has a more tropical vibe. And if you can't wait to see that video and want to see more Japan travel content, click the video on the screen now. I hope to see you again soon.